listening to the Cricket Podcast.
I think it was a disgraceful performance, and I think it should never be permitted to happen again.
That is very good.
Hello everyone, welcome to the Cricket Podcast, where we're going to be talking about the conclusion of Group A, the first round of the T20 Cricket World Cup is over. Netherlands had a bad day at the office, Sri Lanka had a great day at the office, and Namibia have written history. They've become the second team in this tournament to qualify from the first round for the first time in their history, after Scotland did the same yesterday. I'm Jack Hope, and I'm joined by Max Rowe Brown. How are you doing, Max Rowe Brown?
Hello, I'm fine, thanks. I really enjoy it when people refer to me as Ed Sheeran. So, if you continue to put that in the comments, that'd be great.
No, because of a technical error, if you're watching this live, Ross Legg is labelled as Max Rowe Brown. Ross, first thoughts on today's cricket?
Well, it was a really weird day of cricket, because Ireland came out of the blocks absolutely smoking it, then fell apart, and then Netherlands decided, do you know what, we're just going to fall apart from the start. So it's an interesting approach from both. But I thought the Ireland versus Namibia game was really good, and I think that the Sri Lankan bowling lineup today proved that they might well cause some the other more established teams, I suppose, if you could put them there, or the full qualifiers, into a bit of bother.
They might do, if they're as bad as the Netherlands were at batting. Ross, what are the messages for our listeners and viewers?
We are sponsored by Woodstock Cricket. If you want any cricket stuff, go to them and use code TCP25 and get 25% off. We are also on Twitter and Instagram, where you can follow us at the Cricket Pod. And if you're watching this on YouTube, then like this video and subscribe to our channel.
Absolutely. Should we start with Ireland v Namibia, the game that mattered? We'll do a little bit of time on that first, yeah?
Yeah, I've got a little bit of a match summary if you'd like me to.
I would absolutely. I was hoping you'd just go straight ahead, Ross, but if you need my permission, then I am granting it to you now.
Oh, good. I'm taking Max Rowe Brown's beta role, and I'm just trying to fulfil that nicely.
Cool. Yes, what happened in the cricket?
So it was another day of the World Cup. Another shootout for a place in the Super 12. This time it was Europe versus Africa. The Flower of Scotland was replaced by the Clover of Ireland, and the Al Hajar Mountains of Oman replaced by Namibia's Brandberg Mountain. Ireland won the toss and backed themselves to put an imposing score on the board, and Sterling and O'Brien hit 55 in the power play to set things up nicely. But Namibia were measured. They were calm and they were clinical, as the following 14 overs saw them take 8 wickets and concede only 70 runs. The slow and low deck of Sharjah had seen scores of around 135 in the IPL. Ireland were 10 short of par. Namibia lost the power play battle, scoring less than 30 off the first 6. But they were taking this game deep. They'd channeled their inner Mahendra Singh Dhoni, and they were just about staying in reach of the game. All up until the point David Wiese came out, and he joined captain Gerhard Erasmus at the crease. In a close encounter, boundaries were gold dust, and Wiese targeted Craig Young, deposited him from 2 sixes, and the pendulum flung fully in the favour of Namibia. They go home with 9 balls to spare. Namibia progress, and Ireland go home.
Yeah, I think Ireland blew this one, to be honest, Ross. If we go back to right at the beginning of your summary there, and right at the beginning of the match today, somewhere around 11:30 UK time, they just wrapped up a power play where they'd, to be honest, taken the Namibian bowlers to the cleaners. Paul Sterling showed what he can do and why people here love him. But fall of the first wicket, 7-point overs, 62 for 1. You think at that point they're on course for 150 minimum, don't you? You'd think 150 might even be slightly under par in that situation. What do you think went wrong for them after that? Was it just good Namibian bowling, or did Ireland, or were Ireland masters of their own demise to some extent?
I sometimes think if like a team gets off to a good start, sometimes teams just like, oh, actually, we've got the luxury of playing ourselves in a little bit here. And like Balbirnie and Delaney both kind of played themselves in and were both in quite early. Well, in quite quickly after both openers went. And I think sometimes that bit of luxury kind of pulls them into a full sense of security. And once they did that, they completely lost 4 or 5 overs. They didn't score any runs really in those sections, and it put too much pressure on them. And then when they tried to start hitting out, the balls that were there, they were just like, we want to hit this to the leg side. And actually, all of the comms, Ian Bishop, I think, was talking about it, how you need to go down the ground and try and target that. But Namibia had set up for that. And they bowled to a really good plan. And I think Namibia took advantage of that and put a stranglehold on them. So I think it was probably a mixture of both. Bit of stage fright and a bit of good captaincy and a good approach from Namibia.
Just to illustrate how big of a demise this was, at the end of the power play, according to Crickmetric, which do a projected first innings score on their website, which is pretty good, the projected low, so the lowest score that they thought could reasonably happen here, was about 160 at the end of the power play. So it's a huge miss from the point of Ireland to only add, what was it, 60 runs over the next 14 overs or something like that.
70 runs, 125 they ended up on.
Yeah, pretty poor cricket, I thought. And I think, like you say, it was a lack of ambition more than anything else. It was like they never really kept, or they decided to completely take the pressure off. Had they, I mean, they could have gone ballistic after 6 overs, like just been like, well, let's just slog like crazy, and they'd probably just been bowled out for 120 and 14 overs if it had gone wrong. They managed to achieve about as bad a score as they could possibly have achieved, bearing in mind the situation they were in when Paul Stirling was out. I thought. I mean, obviously Namibia, they did bowl well. The spinners were pretty good. And they made it tough-ish for Ireland. But I just thought, you've watched the whole IPL and you've seen the teams that do well at Sharjah, they really attack the ball. They get their strike point, if you like, where they're hitting the ball is a long way down the wicket. And Ireland were like playing late cuts and stuff like that and trying to nudge into the leg side. And it's a small ground. You're never going to get value for runs for those shots in the first place because the boundary field is so close that there'll never be a 2. And on top of that, you're playing on a pudding, basically, aren't you? I mean, Max called it the Sharjah pudding. We need to come up with a recipe for the Sharjah pudding, I think, maybe in time for Christmas. But it's you're never going to find the boundary with those either. So you can't manipulate the field for a quick 2, and you're not going to get the ball away because the pitch is so slow unless you go out and strike it. And Ireland just effectively didn't go out and strike it for at least 10 overs. Then they left themselves with a situation with 5 overs left where they needed to get 40, like you say, to get up near par off the last 5, up near the IPL par, and that was just a bit too much for them. And it is another case of a team that they're not an associate nation, but they're one of the smaller nations in cricket, not able to hit out near the death because they don't have the firepower that a major nation would.
Just try and hit a 6.
Yeah,
there's no ambition.
I think you've got to try and go earlier when your better players are in and your better players are set, and they didn't. And it was a shame for them. It's a shame because people like Irish cricket. They're one of they're probably the first small nation in the last 20 years to break out, weren't they? Before Afghanistan, they were beating Pakistan and they were beating England. So not a great result at all for them, because this means also that they will not automatically qualify for the next World Cup in Australia. Which is good, which Namibia now will, which is really cool for them. But trouble for a Test playing nation there, I think, and quite a poor campaign for a Test playing nation there to get knocked out. Namibia batting, Ross. I think it's fair to say they almost fell into the same trap as the Irish, didn't they? The 2 openers weren't going anywhere fast. When Zane Green's out for 24 or 32, how much of a chance did you actually give them of winning?
Well, it was clear that they weren't. They were just trying to take it deep, as I said in the intro. But it was a little bit it must be a little bit worrying for them, but they've got that engine room, right? They do have hitters in that middle order, which Ireland didn't today. And there was a little bit of, don't worry, we've kind of got this. There was almost like a calmness to it. But there was people who were definitely Namibia fans and definitely some commentators on Twitter who were getting a little bit edgy and be like, Green is playing a match-losing innings here. And actually, I thought if he would have continued batting, it might well have been. And it sometimes is that case of actually sometimes you prefer some people to stay in rather than actually get out. And in this case, when he got out, David Visa comes to the crease, and he
it's a bit of a change, isn't it?
Yeah, so it proved that he's proved that he's a really, really strong addition to this side, and he's been fantastic for Sussex.
I thought we'd lost you there, Ross.
No,
he has been. He's been fantastic for Sussex. He's been fantastic in the PSL. He was good in the CPL this year. He's got IPL experience. It's he's a bit old, but as CSK proved this year, playing on these UAE pitches, age is but a number.
He kind of looks like a. Have you seen the films Lethal Weapon?
I have seen. The 80s? I have, but yeah, I know. You know what I've seen? I've seen the It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia remakes of Lethal Weapon.
Yeah. Well, he's kind of like he's like Mel Gibson. Kind of looks like Mel Gibson, that, or he could easily be like Lethal Weapon 7, and he'd be the villain in that. That's the kind of get-up that he's kind of going for, and he's brilliant. He's absolutely brilliant. Another 2 man of the match performances in the World Cup so far for him.
Yeah, and they've both been in like quite impressive chases as well. I thought, to be honest, that this was going to be a little bit beyond them. Even when Visa came out, I just thought that on this Sharjah wicket, going at 8 and over or whatever it got up to would have been pretty difficult. And I thought they'd make a mistake. They didn't, and it was sort of largely down to him. Gerhard Erasmus as well. We haven't really spoken about him, but he played quite a composed innings. The captain holding things together. He obviously had the equation in his head. What does he finish on? 53 or 49. So it's pretty much the exact run rate they required. Good batting from him as well. Obviously aware that they've got they call it the bomb squad, don't they? I think they call Erasmus, Visa and Smith the bomb squad. He was more like the cherry bomb today, Gerhard Erasmus. But he did know that Smith and Visa were to come, and that if he could sort of still be there later in the innings, that they'd probably win this one. So I thought it was a very impressive innings from him again. What did you reckon?
It was good. It's joint second slowest 50 of all time in T20 internationals. So that's a nice thing to have when you're a winning captain. But it kind of just shows you how you need to adapt your game sometimes. And this was a slow and low deck, right? And when Ireland haven't got enough runs on the board, that gives that team the luxury to do what they did today. And I said in the match summary, they were clinical and they were very measured. And it's a testament to Namibia's approach, right? And I was reading some of the reports on emerging cricket, and saying that actually this has been Namibia's approach. Namibia have been a strong outfit throughout the qualifiers, and they have a certain brand of cricket where they do back themselves. And I think having that confidence, having that role clarity is a major, major thing for a side like this. Ireland, on the other hand, wasn't really like their bowling. They lost Mark Adair to injury. Simi Singh bowled the 18th over. And when you've got an off spinner in against David Rees in a set, Gerhardt, you're kind of in that position where you're just like, is this really the best thing to be doing right now? It just seemed a little bit all over the place for Ireland, unfortunately. Yeah,
it wasn't really clear. I mean, I just think, go back to that first innings, and I laboured it a little bit, but the way they batted after Paul Sterling was out wasn't the way that a team that knows what they're doing and what their overall objective is. If you're going to bat first at Sharjah, you've got to be 140 is an extremely competitive score. So when you're given like a huge gift of a start by Paul Sterling, you've just got to break it down and be like, right lads, we need 80 here off 13 overs with 9 wickets in hand. Surely, let's just keep our heads. As you were saying, we need to hit 4 sixes, basically. That's the way to score runs at Sharjah isn't to nerdle, it's to be like, find the ball that you want in your zone and hit it up in the air, because the boundaries are so close that you'll get away with it. I mean, we saw Visa get away with that for his first 6, didn't he? It brushed the hand of Kevin O'Brien as it went over the rope. Probably 80% of the grounds in world cricket maybe more, that just goes straight to the bloke on the rope. Coming in a lot of the time, the guy has to run in 10 yards to catch that at some places. Not a Sharjah, and that's how you break open and win that game. They only hit a single six, Ireland. They hit 1 6, 5 fours from Paul Sterling. The rest of the team managed to hit 5 fours between them in 96 deliveries. That's crap. That's
it's
really
absolutely crap. I'll tell you what wasn't crap though. Tell you what, Yar France.
Yeah. That's a good name. He's a good bowler as well. I enjoy watching him
bowls
play.
like Harbhajan. He was bowling like Harbhajan Singh. I mean, there are worse bowlers to base yourself off if you're an aspiring off spinner. And I was impressed by him.
Yeah. This means that Namibia will join Scotland in what I think is probably the tougher group when you look at the A-list teams playing in it, with India, Pakistan, New Zealand, and Afghanistan. I remembered it this time. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Do Namibia have a chance of winning any matches, Ross? Or should they just enjoy the 5 matches they're going to have against good opposition?
I think that they haven't got a bad team, but they are coming up against like some better quality players. Like there is a massive difference between coming up and facing kind of Kevin O'Brien bowling at kind of 65-mile-an-hour dobbers compared to Shaheen Afridi coming in and whacking in at 89-mile-an-hour Yorker. It's a little bit of a step up.
Bumrah bowling from point.
Yeah, the spinners are a little bit better. I mean, you saw the spinners today, right, for Sri Lanka. They were just a class above what Netherlands had been used to playing. And I think there is just a bit of a... that step up is going to be difficult, but there's no... It's like Scotland. They're there. They've done the bit that they wanted to do. Anything from this point on is a bonus. They've got the ticket to the next World Cup. They're going to inspire more people in Namibia to play cricket. Like the whole thing is mission accomplished for them.
Yeah, absolutely is. And on a personal level as well. If a couple of them have a good tournament, then there are franchise leagues that would be interested in Gerhard Erasmus, I'd have thought, or JJ Smith. We haven't seen the JJ Smith that everyone tells us about so much in this tournament, but if he hits Shaheen Afridi for a couple of sixes, then suddenly he's at the PSL next year. You know what? That's how this how this works.
David Visa's going to be rocking out for CSK. That's what's going to happen. 37 years old.
Yeah, I think the final thing to say, from my point of view, is that Namibia absolutely deserved this. They played better cricket than Ireland today. They outplayed the Netherlands in the last game. They are playing the most effective brand of T20 cricket, I think, and especially for a team that probably weren't favourites today. They went out and they did everything right to make it difficult for Ireland, and I think that's very much to be applauded. Anything you want to say on this game before we move on to the thriller?
I want to say one thing. I am all for fielders continuing to do the Cantonar celebration. Jatinder Singh did it yesterday. Kevin O'Brien did it twice today. I hope we continue to see look at me, I've just managed to catch one standing at mid-on. So well done, Kevin O'Brien. Yes,
he did. This was a thing on the commentary, wasn't it? Was he outside the circle for the second one? It didn't matter at all because you were in sort of like, do we retire Green for the sake of the team territory when he was caught out? But he looked like he just a bit slow getting into the ring, and that maybe should have been a free hit. But I don't know what you thought.
Yeah, Green getting out won them the game. It was almost perfect. I saw some people on this doing the whole when is a team going to retire out someone, and today would have been the perfect opportunity for the team to do it.
I think as soon as someone does that, they have to change the law. I really don't like that.
No,
I think it undermines like some of the central pillars of what cricket is if you start retiring batsmen out and bringing them in and out for match-ups and stuff like that. It isn't baseball. It's not American football. It's a different sport.
A person could just be like, okay, well, I'm just going to hit my own wicket then. But
they can, but that uses up a ball, doesn't it?
Yeah, true. There's not too many batsmen as well. There's no batsman I've ever met or played with at the amateur level, let alone the professional level, who's going to turn around and go, Yeah, no, I can't do it from here. I'm going to get myself out. It's a big
But
ego game, isn't it?
somebody will make somebody retire out in the next couple of years, I reckon. It won't be. It'll be in like the CPL.
It'll be Dan Weston. It'll be Dan Weston
Yeah,
in the T10.
yeah. But as soon as that happens, somebody needs to change the law and be like, if you retire a batsman who's not injured, then they're out. That's a wicket, and it costs you a ball. Because you can't under. Anyway, that's a tangent we don't need to go down. Sri Lanka v Netherlands. Do you reckon you can do a summary that lasts longer than the match?
No, I've written the match report. Sri Lanka turned up, Netherlands didn't. The end. That's it. It was an absolute trouncing, wasn't it? It was unbelievable. Sri Lanka. It was awful to watch from the Netherlands' point of view, and it was like Ryan Tendrishkarta's last game. And I think he deserved. And it's just like,
dropped him.
Okay, I was just like, what's going on? Just one thing after the other. This is a tournament to forget for the Netherlands, and there was quite a lot of hype, especially by the Dutch, kind of being like, do you know what? Actually, we're going to do something here. What they've done, unfortunately, is embarrass themselves. So. Not a great look, but today we saw the best side of Sri Lanka, I thought, in terms of their bowling lineup. They've finally got two pacers who actually bowl pace. They've got two mystery spinners. I mean, in the chat, people were calling them chuckers, but it'd be really difficult.
They're not chuckers till they're called, are they?
Exactly. I mean,
no.
There's going to be
Ryan. He's a chucker.
Yeah. Sajid Admal. I'm not going to go down this route. But there is a piece around if they're going to play 3 games at Sharjah, I think. So they're going to play on this low and slow deck, and actually getting the right line and length on that spin bowling today is what Hasaranga did really well, and doing that against some of the better batsmen who had caused them a bit of trouble. But I liked your point around how the good IPL batsmen were playing against them. They were taking the stride down the pitch. The Netherlands were going back to these deliveries, and you just saw that they were completely bamboozled by them.
Yeah,
you have to use your feet, and that inception point, you have to get there. And they just unfortunately were out of their depth today.
I think that's basically what it was. You know, I'm not an expert on Dutch cricket, but I would imagine Dutch wickets are either synthetic and quite bouncy, or they are similar-ish to English wickets in that they'll be like the same grass, prepared the same way and so on, and be a little bit bouncy, be a little bit flat. They're definitely not going to be Sharjah puddings. A lot of the Dutch guys as well. They've either played a lot of cricket in South Africa or they've played a lot of county cricket, so they'll have had exposure to those types of wickets. And on top of that, they're not elite level players. They're definitely the level down, most of them. So they're less good players playing in really alien conditions against 2 quite good spin bowlers, and you can kind of see how it can go wrong. You saw literally how it went wrong, or it can go wrong for these sides. When
it happens to the best of them, right, as well. England have been on the receiving end of that as well.
India were bowled out for 36 less than a year ago.
So it does happen. So there's no shame in it. It was just unfortunate today that they were just out of their depth on that bit. And the Netherlands don't have a good glut of spinners either. Like Scotland at least have a couple of spinners that they can kind of trust, and they've got people who are playing against it in the nets, etc. Netherlands didn't really seem to have that, unfortunately.
No, and I think a lot of people said that their pace bowling was very good, and I don't think that quite turned up at the tournament, or it certainly wasn't. It wasn't like Sri Lanka's pace bowling was good. Do you know what I mean? It was.
Yeah, they didn't really seem to get it right. I think on those kind of pitches, you need to be targeting the stumps, but I think when you target the stumps, that doesn't mean you have to pitch every single delivery up there, kind of, because all that does is risk you getting hit back over your head. It is just that one that is just back of a length that we've seen work in the UAE in the IPL, right? And it is difficult to get away if it does bounce up a little bit, or you kind of try and go down to it, and the length is just a bit difficult to read. So, they got it wrong, but that goes down to inexperience probably in these conditions, like you said.
Can I ask you a question? How good do you think Hasaranga actually is? Because some people are saying he'd play for one of the good Sri Lanka sides. So we're talking, I don't know, 5 to 15 years ago, in the golden era of Sri Lankan cricket after obviously their World Cup win. Would he? Because I'm still not 100% sure I'm drinking the Kool-Aid on Hasaranga.
I'm not really sure he's done enough as of yet. I think he's still relatively kind of green behind the ears when it comes to international cricket and kind of being on the scene. He obviously got picked up by RCB, didn't really play. I think he played once or twice and then got dropped. He can bat a bit, which goes in his favour.
He can bat, that's definitely true, yeah.
So that does help. And I think that, again, we talk about how recency bias comes into this kind of stuff. If he performs in the Super 12, then sky's the limit, right? The recruiters around the world are going to be just like, oh, this guy's just got Bairstow out, Jason Roy, Joss Butler, great. But actually, he's got to prove it, and at the moment, he's just not quite there. It doesn't mean he can't do it. I think they were breaking down how to pick his leg spinner compared to his googly, and actually, there's not much difference in the hands. It's really difficult for those batsmen to actually do that. But again, we've seen people like Kuldeep Yadav come and go. Is he going to be another kind of Kuldeep Yadav in that regard, where people actually figure out, actually, this is how you play him? I'm not sure people are going to go back like they do to Kuldeep Yadav and then be able to move their feet. They're probably going to attack him, and we might need to see that and how he reacts in that kind of environment.
Well, I look forward to it. He's definitely an entertaining player. There's absolutely no doubt about that. You know, batting and bowling it both looks really good, but it looks a lot better when you're playing at Sharjah against some part-time cricketers. Is what I'd say. I think how he goes in the next 5 matches will, to some extent, make or break Sri Lanka's tournament, because there were people with justification saying this Sri Lanka side might not make it through this group. They were so poor against England earlier this year. It's so poor. They had to send people home for going out on the piss. Instead of being in their bubble, that meant their best wicket keeper's not available, and suddenly they've managed to pull together a good bowling attack by the looks of things against the people they played so far. But we do have to bear in mind, I think maybe what people didn't bear in mind before the tournament was that they were coming up against some pretty average players in some cases. The teams in their group, batting wise, most of them have 2 players that are good. And then some fill-ins batting wise. So how he gets on? But they built some confidence, is what I mean. They played some good cricket. They've overcome the opposition they had to overcome. Where's the limit for Sri Lanka, I think, is the question I'm asking.
Well, in the chat, just to put that Hasaranga point, we've got Royal Dong, who's gone with Hasaranga makes Shadab Khan look like Adam Zampa. So there's some good mental gymnastics going on there. Quality Shot, who we've been on the podcast before with, is clearly a Hasaranga stan. And then Swarndeep Gupta has come in and backed out our position of let's give him a couple of years and then let's judge him. So it's great, right? I think this is the beauty of World Cup cricket. You're getting to see these players on a much bigger stage. I think the rest of the Sri Lankan lineup, their pace bowlers look okay. Was it Kamara and Chima? And Kamira, I just can't see their batting causing those issues.
No.
There's just not that much of a threat to me at the moment. But I tell you, if you're playing at the Sharjah, all it
I
takes
think they
is
have
for somebody
3 games at Sharjah or something like that.
Yeah, and all that takes, right, is someone to figure out how they can bat on it, hit a 60 relatively in 40 balls or whatever, and actually that wins you the game at Sharjah, and that can be the difference.
Absolutely. I mean, this is the Dan Weston theory for these smaller nations, is you want to have as many guys in your batting lineup that could, in theory, get 70 or 40, because if one of them goes, or if 2 of them go, then you're definitely going to have a score to defend, and then you sort of hope for the best with the bowling. Except for Sri Lanka's case, their bowling is a bit better than hope for the best. You know what I mean? It's actually, if somebody got 70 or 40 balls against Australia at Sharjah, I don't know if they're playing Australia. They're not playing Australia at Sharjah. That was a bad example. I think they're playing South Africa and England at Sharjah. Yeah. Against South Africa, 70 or 40, South Africa batting second have to get, say, 150 to win. I don't think South Africa are getting that very often against this. And so there are ways to win. I don't know if England would get that. I think that would be a pretty tough chase for England.
Is it? I'm going to absolutely butcher his name, but Theekshana?
That's good. I think it's that. It's got a hard T, I think.
Okay. So, but again, like, bowling in pairs is actually really important, especially in T20 cricket, and having that rhythm. And there is a bit around this team that it could click into place. But again, the step up in quality is massive. Bowling against the Netherlands versus bowling against England is completely different. Because it's a passive and a dominant relationship, right? And I think that is it completely gets reversed when you start playing against the big boys. And yeah, it's going to be a really good second part of the tournament. And I love the fact that there's games at Sharjah. Makes it more interesting, I think.
Yeah. Also, if there's by some miracle a decent pitch at Sharjah, we can still see 200 aside, which is what we want. It's
That's the wrangle of the century.
Hasaranga of the century. That would be good. Right, that's it. Say goodbye to the Netherlands. Well done, Sri Lanka. They're through 1 in 7 overs, so God knows what their net run rate is. Probably world record net run rate. I actually want to find that out, so hold on a second. Oh, only plus 3.75. I feel like it should be higher if you beat a team in 7 overs. Anyway, let's move on. We've got a few questions on Twitter, and then we'll make a few predictions, Ross. We're up to about 25 minutes, so we only want to do 5 minutes.
Well, we've got 100 people watching at the moment, which is great because
we're not talking about India. Yeah,
yeah, amazing. So thanks for those watching.
If you are watching, hit like, hit subscribe. That helps us a lot in terms of growing the channel. We're trying to get to 10,000 people, aren't we? It was the road to 10k. We started the road to 10k about a month ago, but the road was quite long, so we stopped talking about it. But then we've had a little bit of a surge. So road to 10k, it's back on. Pranjal says Sri Lanka is a decent. This is just saying this. There's no question. Sri Lanka has a decent bowling lineup. Ross, maybe even better than England's lineup. Well, I'm going to make that question. Who has the better bowling lineup, England or Sri Lanka?
England. England do. I think their pace bowlers are both better. Timar Mills is better than Chimera, and Kamara Wood is better than him. Spin wise, Adil Rashid and Hasaranga. I'm not sure who you prefer. Actually, both are probably actually relatively similar in T20 cricket. I
think you'd probably go with Rashid, but like we're saying, that's partly because Hasaranga's a bit of an unknown quantity still. He's quite new on the scene. He hasn't played in this tournament the sort of side that will have a video analyst and all the batters in a room being like, "This is how you pick the googly, mate." And this is where you he bowls too slow in this area, so hit him over for 6 over there. He might turn up next week and blast through a couple of teams, and then we'll all be saying, well, he's definitely better than Rashid. But at the moment, jury's still out to some extent. RR says, given the number of matches this group plays in Sharjah, except for Australia, who got lucky, they're not playing any, are England going to qualify along with a subcontinental team like Sri Lanka or Bangladesh? So I think there are 9 group matches at Sharjah. 6 of them involve teams that have gone through the qualifiers, so teams like Sri Lanka or Scotland or whatever. I think 2 things about that. I think that means there's a decent chance of an upset, because in those low-scoring games, 70 or 40 makes a huge difference. And if you've got Hasaranga, that's where you want him to be bowling, isn't it? Skidding it around, a foot off the ground. Who do you think is going to go through out Group A? Or Group 1?
So someone put in the chat, if someone correctly calls the position of those who'll give them $1 million. I mean,
well, we'll keep the podcast going for a couple of weeks.
As much as the spin bowling is there, I just don't think Bangladesh and Sri Lanka have the batting prowess to actually do enough. I've seen that people are calling South Africa dark horses. Absolutely not a chance. It's an Australia. They're just full of a bunch of all-rounders. Like the selectors are so strange for Australia right now. And then West Indies have got their off-field problems, but they are amazing, absolutely amazing. England, again, an amazing cricket team, but will they adapt to these slow pitches? So all of the 6 have like good and bad parts about them. I'm going to obviously have to say England go through.
I think this worked to West Indies. I was
going to say West Indies in there, but West Indies. I mean, is Hayden Walsh Jr. actually going to be the spinner for them in this kind of thing? If Edson or Narayan, maybe.
So here's I think if they had Sun on Orion, they'd be really, really strong favourites to go through, if not win the tournament. But here's what I think. I think the current West Indies side weren't good enough to win 4 or 5 matches. I think they're going to lose 2. But in a group where lots of teams will be beating everyone because they're all major nations, they've all got good players. There's no whipping boy. I think they'll batter a couple of teams, have a good net run rate, win 3, go through with a 3-2 record, the same as England, and then I reckon the other 4 teams will just beat each other, and they'll have a day out. Each of them will have a day out against one of the big sides, against West Indies or England. But I just can't see Australia consistently winning loads of matches, and I think the presence of Bangladesh and the presence of Sri Lanka is a big problem for them because they're not easy wins. If it were say Namibia, if Namibia and Scotland were in England's group, then what would happen for Australia is if you beat Namibia and Scotland, then you only have to beat you may only have to beat one of the other 3 sides to go through.
Now, they're just stealing the fat kid sweets, aren't they? They're just adding it to their own. That's all they're doing in that regard. But as I said, every game is going to be great to watch, and even in the other group now, I mean, this is still going to be. I think it's going to be great. Yeah, well, and in the other group, nobody's got room for error. This India-Pakistan game, if it wasn't big already, now has actual qualification implications resting on it, because everybody knows that India, Pakistan, they're all going to beat, or they should beat, Scotland and Namibia. They should be quite easy wins. Yes, but it's going to be good. Do we have time for one more question? Oh, we've got another one from our predictions for the weekend. So England, West Indies, Australia v South Africa, and India v Pakistan. We talked a bit about India, Pakistan yesterday, so we don't want to overdo that. England, West Indies tomorrow, Ross. Who's your money on? England. I think we'll start strong. I think there'll be a bit where they come out the blocks, and I think we will shock and awe. Shock and awe.
Yeah, I think that South Africa are a pretty weak team. England could very well pick a weird side and lose that match. But if they go quite spin heavy, I think that they'll beat South Africa there without too much drama. They're probably a 70-30% favourite, I would say. Which isn't completely
it's Australia, South Africa, England, West Indies, isn't it?
Oh, so I've read it off here. Sorry, I messed that up. Yeah.
I still think.
We've just done the preview for later in the tournament. England v West Indies. Oh, that actually is a really close one. The only team that from an England point of view that I think England should fear in this group is West Indies, because they're the only team with more than one player that can actually take the game away from you.
Yeah, I think the benefit for England at the moment is, one, the balance of West Indies side without Fabian Allen is a little bit off. So actually what they do with that lineup is a little bit interesting. And the fact that Andre Russell is just coming back from injury. I think Andre Russell, if you play him in 2 games' time and he's got a couple of games underneath his belt, much more dangerous player to be dealing with. But first game, I think England are going to be well set, actually. Whereas Australia versus South Africa, I mean, I want South Africa to smash Australia. I just want Australia to capitulate and finish bottom of the group. Nothing would make me happier.
I mean, it could happen, couldn't it? I think that one of those sides is going to win and then think that they're like the champions. Probably Australia will win, and then they'll think they're the best cricket team on earth until whoever they play next, and then they'll lose. So, yeah, I'm going to go England, Australia, probably. But I think the West Indies have got a really good chance. That's a very, very narrow England call there. Have you got anything more to add on India v Pakistan? We talked about it yesterday. Have any thoughts occurred to you?
No, I just like the fact that when we've got quite a big Indian following, right? And in this regard,
if we do say so ourselves,
there is that bit around. Don't underestimate Pakistan. Yes, there's that 5-0 kind of record in T20 World Cups. Yes, India have some of the best T20 players in the world, but don't underestimate the raw emotion of what Pakistan cricket has gone through in the last kind of couple of months. And I think there is a bit where they just have the players to potentially cause an upset. I think, as you said, there is so much riding on that game that I think experienced heads are going to have to come through there. So you might see India's selectors actually go with a pretty unorthodox lineup, just to try and see them through and get through the emotion of the occasion.
Do you? What does an unorthodox lineup look like to you?
playing Ravi Ashwin first and foremost. I don't think I'd play him if I was actually picking my best India
See,
T20 side.
I think Ashwin's a guy who does get quite emotional. If I was going to pick I don't see him as like a Terminator style player. You know,
A big game player. He's a big game player.
he is a big game player. He harnesses his emotion.
Yeah, I think he's one of those players. He's
It's like Steve Gerrard of India.
He's the Steven Gerrard of India. Yeah. The philosopher and the big game player.
The box-to-box midfielder of the Indian spin bowling attack. I haven't really got much more to add on it. We talked about it quite a lot over the last couple of days. I mean, and we'll definitely talk about it on tomorrow's pod with Dan. I'm just interested to see all the different combinations of players that you don't see very often. Like it's a disgrace, really, isn't it? Or it's not just it's a real disappointment that we have not seen a major battle between Shaheen Shah Afridi and Virat Kohli, or Rohit Sharma or KL Rahul. Like, that's just not something that cricket has experienced yet. Or on the flip side, we've not seen Jasprit Bumrah bowl into Babar Azam. Like, they should be box office matchups. It should be Joe Root v Jasprit Bumrah. That's what Babar Azam v Jasprit Bumrah could be. We saw that all summer and it was fantastic. But we just not had it from these really terrifically talented guys who aren't allowed to play. I mean, their cricket balls get on as well. They actually, like the BCCI and the PCB, want to play each other, but politics, isn't it?
Okay. So Sri Lanka versus Bangladesh is the other one on Sunday.
I think Sri Lanka are better than Bangladesh based on what I've seen, but then they've both been playing quite poor sides. Oh, that's a lottery game, isn't it?
Yeah.
What do you think? Have you got any insight?
It's at Sharjah, so it instantly.
I think that suits both of them, though.
Yeah, but I just that's what I like about it. It's a real leveler. That bit.
That's the sort of game where one of them could fail to chase 115. I reckon. I think both sides. Whoever 130 will be a good score. It'll be quite difficult cricket to watch, I'd think. And it's a huge game, for either of them to actually qualify. They have to win that one, because I can't see them going on a tear and beating 3 of the other 4 in the group. I think they have to win that one, both of them. So it's it's a knockout match. Bangladesh have just won a knockout match against Papua New Guinea. So
it doesn't mean too much. Swaraj has put in the thing saying that considering Pakistan played India and New Zealand in their first 2 matches, if they lose both, they're definitely out. It'll be a long way back for them, because New Zealand, I think, are a pretty handy team. And again, people say that New Zealand are dark horses. They're bloody finalists in the last 2 World Cups. Like, they're not going to be mugs. But I think it's going to be again a very, very interesting group, that one. And then the game on Monday, I think we can talk about another time.
Afghanistan.
Scotland.
Scotland are going to win that one, aren't they? Easy.
We'll have to back Ronan on that one. Cool.
Should we wrap this up? Just a reminder, we are on Twitter at The Cricket Pod. You can subscribe to us on any platform, actually, and you should.
Road to 10K and Patreon. Come on. Yeah,
Patreon. We had a flurry of Patreons. Now where's everyone gone? In the show notes, patreon.com/The Cricket Pod for data, for hats. The data is actually genuinely really good. That's for £4 a month. If you want to learn more about cricket, you're not going to get a better deal. And there's something else Woodstock Cricket. Don't forget them. Get yourself a bat.
Well, thanks for listening, everybody, and we'll see you soon.
Done.